What are some facts that are actually false? People in the Middle Ages thought the Earth was flat. The Greeks had already calculated the radius of the sphere with great precision centuries before. Edit spelling. While we're here, Galileo was never executed by the Catholic Church for believing in heliocentrism. He was put under house arrest because 1. He suggested a heretical interpretation of scripture during the Counter-Reformation to support his claims, and 2. The Pope asked Galileo to actually write a book to explain his theory. When Galileo wrote this book, he included a character whose name translates to the fool who happened to have all the same beliefs that the Pope had. Today I learned, people actually think Galileo was executed by the Catholic Church. Execution and excommunication are not synonyms, people. Saint Patrick isn't Irish, he's Welsh, and was a slave to the Irish for 6 years. Nile of the 9 hostages. Einstein didn't fail math. Albert Einstein's family members confirmed he was in fact gay. He never struggled in school either, but it is very interesting to think that such an intelligent mind had to hide being homosexual. Yup, the confusion stems from the fact that, while 6 is the best mark in Switzerland, where Einstein graduated, it's the exact opposite in Germany, his home country. It's a common misconception that goldfish only grow as big as their bowl. In reality, the reason they tend to only grow so big as pets is because of poor water quality and improper care. They aren't really meant to be kept cooped up in small tanks, so the reason they stay small is because they die a lot earlier than their life expectancy in the wild. Sounds a little blunt perhaps, but it's essentially the same as a malnourished child dying. But it happens so often that everyone would just tend to think that's what humans are like. In the proper conditions, goldfish should survive well into their 20s and beyond, and they don't actually stop growing until they die. We had a massive one that lived until at least 20 and was 8 inches. Bastard ate everything we put in there other than the cleaner fish he had spent his life with, and I think that's just because it was too big. We called him killer. Other than the cleaner fish, when I was a kid, I read a book about a turtle. Naturally, I decided I wanted a turtle too, so I got one for my birthday that year. About a year or 2 later, my mom decided to buy a cleaner fish. She thought that perhaps putting the fish in the tank with the 2 turtles would allow her to not clean the tank out so often. Tank had to be cleaned roughly every month. Mom bought the fish while I was at school one day, put it in, and walked away. She came back about an hour later and found the fish floating at the top of the water, dead. She was confused. The fish didn't have any marks on it, and when she introduced the fish to the tank, the turtles didn't seem to notice or care. So, she bought another one. An hour later, that one too was dead. Again, no marks, nothing. Frustrated, she bought another one, and this time, I was home. So we watched the tank. About 10 minutes or so after introducing the fish, the turtles took notice and would chase after it. They would chase it, swim at it, snap at it repeatedly until it died of stress in only a few moments. Then they would swim away, ignoring the corpse of the fish they just tormented to death. The mantis shrimp can't see a million zillion colors. Earlier researchers made an assumption that their cones worked in the same way as our 3 do. Color opponency. The oatmeal and a few others didn't know how to differentiate assumption from fact and popularized this idea of a hyper-aware shrimp. Extensive studies since then have disproved their color discrimination magic because, surprise, their retina is built differently. I think their honor punishment strength is still valid though. The often cited claim that there are more black men in prison than college. Bill Cosby said it during his 2004 pound cake speech, and it went viral among an uncannily diverse group ranging from white supremacists to mainstream civil rights activists, even ending up in a 2007 Barack Obama stump speech. But it has been provably false since at least 2002 and was almost certainly never true to begin with. Tic Tacs are sugar-free. While listed as sugar-free, this is a marketing trick taking advantage of a loophole due to their small size. To be listed as sugar-free, a product must contain no more than 0.5 grams of sugar per serving. Tic Tacs are approximately 98% sugar, but the serving size is 1 mint. with an average size only 0.49 grams. Edit. RIP my inbox. I feel betrayed now. Do any out there companies use this tactic? That Pearl Harbor was the only attack on US soil during World War II. In fact, the Japanese bombed Dutch Harbor and invaded the Aleutian Islands. There were also U-boat attacks on the west coast and German spies who landed via U-boat on the east coast. None of these were particularly consequential in the grand scheme of things though, so they were forgotten. Fun fact, the Japanese also bombed Omaha, during the war. They tied a bunch of bombs to balloon and let them float over the US. One of these bombs landed in the Dundee part of town and blew up in the middle of the street. No one was injured, and the whole thing was hushed up so the Japanese wouldn't know if the tactic worked. There's a plaque there now, next to a restaurant and an ice cream shop. Ket.com link. The balloon bombs did work once, in Oregon. Killed a pregnant woman and 5 teenagers. Wired.com link. The Pilgrims are very unlikely to have actually landed at Plymouth Rock. By some accounts they actually landed at Fraggle Rock. Pepper Jack loves Fraggle Rock. Eating carrots doesn't actually improve your night vision. This was a disinformation campaign carried out by the British in World War II to keep the Germans from discovering that they invented radar. It's pretty funny obvious once you stop and think about it. Edit. It was because of the invention of Doppler radar actually helped distinguish distance and speed so they could intercept German bombers more effectively. Thanks to you/Rosa. It doesn't improve night vision, but lack of the vitamins in carrots, forget what it is, can actually cause night blindness. It is vitamin A. While dining, the ancient Romans did not ritualistically eat so much that they had to interrupt eating to go vomit. An entranceway to a stadium of that time was called a vomitorium and had nothing to do with dining. I have seen this fact in at least 2 children's history books and I have no idea how or why some historian came up with this weird claim. Speaking of eating, those fat Buddha statues and depictions you see in some Asian restaurants are not a historical Buddha, who founded Buddhism and was not obese. They are Buddhai, a 10th century Chinese folk hero, who eventually became a Buddha himself. Israel Bissell not Paul Revere was the most important writer who let the revolutionaries know the English were coming. George Washington never cut down his parents' cherry tree, nor did he ever utter the words "I cannot tell a lie," though the long rifles were useful in fighting the British during the Revolutionary War. Muskets made up the bulk of the American firearms. Israel Bissell not Paul Revere was the most important writer who let the revolutionaries know the English were coming. To add to this, Revere would not have said the British are coming, or the English are coming, because the colonists would still have considered themselves British. The term used was the regulars are coming. The food pyramid. It was lobbied into what we grew up on by the food industry, having plenty of grain. I mean, come on. Grain is not more necessary than vegetables and fruit. The food pyramid wasn't developed by a medical organization. It was developed by the US Department of Agriculture. They're more of an economic agency than a medical one. American diets are really outside the scope of what they do. Food pyramid recommendations come from the average American diet that works best for the American farmer. If your palm is bigger than your face, it means you have cancer. This is not true. In fact, it is actually a ruse to trick you into putting your hand up to your face, only to have Steve hit your hand into your own face in front of the whole class, including Jessica, who you've had a crush on since the 4th grade. The pain from hitting yourself in the face will fade, but the sting of shame and embarrassment will linger for life. If you're undercover and a cop, you have to tell me. Poor Badger. I love how he later expresses his disappointment at being deceived. You told me to my face you weren't a cop. Man, I thought we were gonna hang out. It's a myth that the Great Wall of China is the only man-made object visible from space. It may be long, but it is not very wide, so there would be no way you could see it from over 100 miles above the Earth without some sort of magnification such as a telescope. There are man-made objects that can be seen from space, such as some open-cast mining pits, and also the greenhouse in southern Spain can be seen, but with viewing from space it depends on perfect conditions with clear skies and no clouds. Also, cities. You see this in the media a lot, that a heart attack is the same as cardiac arrest. It's not. In order for a body to function normally, blood needs to flow to the cells to drop off oxygen and nutrients and take away waste products. If that process stops, the cells begin to starve, fill up with waste and die. The blood travels through arteries in the heart just like most other places in the body. A heart attack is when one or more of those arteries are blocked and the heart tissue starts to die from starvation. If enough cells die, the entire organ dies. A cardiac arrest is when the entire heart fails to pump normally, resulting in that blood flow stopping throughout the entire body, not just the heart. There are several causes of cardiac arrest, one of them being a major heart attack that kills enough of the heart muscle. But you can have a cardiac arrest from having a multitude of medical problems, from a burst blood vessel in your brain to a blocked blood vessel in your lungs and even losing enough blood or having a huge systemic infection. These are the people who need CPR, edited for oversimplification and clarity, with cross-org link. Simple terms, heart attack is a blockage in the heart stopping blood flow. Cardiac arrest is a sudden failure of the whole heart. That BuzzFeed comes up with these lists on their own. I see you. BuzzFeed. Bro, my wife is always sharing or showing me some BuzzFeed post. Nearly 75% of the time it is filled with information I found 2 days prior in a thread on Reddit. Like, can they just hire me? I'm on this shit all day at work anyway. It is a complete falsehood that if a penguin does not find love, it waddles off to die alone. I was horrified when I first saw this, and since I couldn't find anything else on the internet about it, I reached out to Dr. Deese Boersma at the University of Washington and asked her about this claim. She told me that she has 33 years of data and has observed pairings that have stayed together for as long as 16 years. She also told me that penguins can get divorced when not successful at mating, and that they will most likely will divorce if not hatched. There is also a major gender skew of more males than females. If a male wants a mate, he has to have a nest set up. Furthermore, females don't come ashore unless they are going to mate. So some females will skip breeding season if they are not in a mating mood. For example, a female she studied had skipped pairing with her male for a year. The male looked for another mate, didn't find one, and then the next year she was back with him. They do have emotions and they do vary in aggressiveness over a lifetime. Furthermore, because there are many more males than females, a lot of males have never gotten mates. One of the penguins they've studied, Turbo, a Magellan penguin, has not had a mate in 14 years and he keeps on trying. So penguins do not, in fact, waddle off to die if they do not find a mate. Poor Turbo. I feel like Reddit needs to get Turbo laid. Best comment of the day. I have schizoid personality disorder. I absolutely hate having to tell anyone about it, and rarely do, because of people's misconceptions and the general demonization of the word schizo. The word schizo, in fact, is Latin and just means split. In my case it is paired with oid, which basically just means resembling, close to or like, humanoid, cuboid. Every time you, a friend, someone on TV, or in a movie, has called someone a schizo, they are spitting out foreign words they don't even understand, and are calling them a split. Humanity really has a long way to go in terms of understanding mental health issues.